Yeah, I got report over
So
here.
we're good?
Ready?
We're
Okay.
ready.
I call the City of Escalon Planning Commission to order. Can we have a flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Willis,
Here.
Commissioner Sarkozy, Commissioner Dunbar, Commissioner Van Dyke,
Here.
Commissioner Castellanos,
Here?
Like you had to think about that.
Yeah, I had to think about it. Just a note, if there's anybody that has cell phones or pagers or other devices, unless you are on-duty emergency responder, if you could put it either on silence or turn them off, please. What has been decided with the minutes? Can we,
So for the minutes, minutes are considered routine consent calendar items, and so even if you're not here for that meeting or present on the commission, all you're doing is approving them to move to the next item, and so legal counsel's always advised that even if you're not a part of them, you can still provide a vote.
okay. Do I hear any corrections with the minutes? There was a lot of minutes.
it's a long one.
I talk more than I normally do.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting on December 13th.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're now going to open up the public hearing. And the first item on the agenda is application 22773. It's the site and architectural and conditional use permit. At the suggestion of staff, we are going to continue this meeting until next Tuesday, March 21st.
We are opening the public hearing and
We're
continuing this
I'll open the
item.
public hearing if anybody wants to voice any opinions on that or not.
We have the opportunity to voice an opinion on the 21st.
Of course you will.
Yes. Well, we're simply moving this item to the next meeting, so we're continuing it so that it doesn't have to be re-advertised, and then available on the 21st. You're more than welcome to provide your, tonight if you'd like to, because the public hearing is open. So you can do
Yeah.
tonight or the 21st.
Yeah, you just get up to the podium and then you can say the same thing next Tuesday. Okay.
My name's Matt Felber. I live near Countrywood and Swanson, so very close to where this business is proposed to go in. I would just express my concerns to you guys with the Planning Commission on, these are very narrow streets to begin with. Having a drive-through exit onto Countrywood is going to create traffic issues. There's a lot of foot traffic up and down that street as well. Children play on that street. I just don't believe it's a good situation to have that much vehicle traffic going in and out of what is already a narrow street. If one vehicle parks on that street, it already delays traffic because there's not enough room for two cars to pass at the same time. So those are my concerns, is having children that play in that area and living in that area, the amount of traffic that this business is going to generate coming through that residential neighborhood is going to be far greater than what I think is expected by McDonald's or anybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other person in there, all right. So Cody Fowler, 1550 Judith. I actually support the project at McDonald's. we need the tax revenue, so I certainly support it. I guess the issue I have is I believe that really the city and McDonald's should do a little bit of negotiation, and let's get rid of the driveway on Countrywood. I think that'll be a big negotiation for folks like him who live right behind it. Certainly need to mitigate that traffic effort there. We don't need traffic going into the neighborhood. I also live back in there in Countrywood Estates, but yeah, I'd like to see them eliminate that driveway on Countrywood. There's got to be a way they could do it. There was an update on the planning documents that showed two different lot plans there, and one of them, obviously they had changed the design of it to appease somebody, but one of the ones that was on that in the documents certainly looked like it could have had a second driveway added on McHenry on the north end of the lot there. I really think we should see if we can negotiate with McDonald's to do just that, because I think that'll eliminate a lot of the pushback that you are getting from the public on this topic. But otherwise, I support it. We need the tax dollars, and we're either going to build houses and expand and get tax revenue that way, or we're going to start bringing business in here and getting it in here. So that's always been the idea. So let's get them in here. Let's just do a happy negotiation to keep the people there and in the neighborhood happy. That's all.
Thank you very much. Close the public hearing. I don't think we need any discussion on this item tonight. So we'll move on to...
Public hearing stays open. We aren't going to close it. It just
Public hearing-
remains open to the
Oh,
next meeting.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
no problem.
Next item on the agenda is Project 23776 Ordinance Amendment.
This one,
Could I have a staff report? Or,
number
Definitive
3.
parcel map, same thing, open the public hearing, and then continue it to March
oh,
21st.
wait a minute, we got the other one. Yes, that would be the application for the tentative parcel map minor subdivision.
Right.
I'm going to open up the public hearing. I jumped ahead. Anybody would like to comment about that? Yeah. The first one was I think the first one was the architectural review. This one is, I think, splitting the lot, the existing lot. Nope.
I guess maybe this is a good opportunity to see if I can bring up this question. Has anybody reached out? Have we tried to negotiate with McDonald's on the Countrywood driveway?
I know that there was some discussions about changing it. I know there was some discussions about putting a gate on it. I don't remember if there was some
Going through
traffic issues about driveways off of McHenry or how close
Yeah,
to the
so-
corner, just because of the lot is not long enough.
Sure.
Get, so I don't remember. I know
The
there
only
was some
thing that I
questions.
was able to really ascertain from the minutes from the previous meeting that this came up and a lot of people spoke against the project was that there was some discussion about them being able to get their trucks in there, but there was no flat-out denial by McDonald's to say whether or not they could. But I could be wrong, and I don't know what's gone on since then, but I was just wondering if we had, I don't even know how that works. Does the city engineer go back to McDonald's and say, hey, I think, a lot of people they don't like this Countrywood driveway. Can we do this? Can we not? I mean, is there any back channel? Or do they just have to?
I think because it's public comment, public hearing, we're just accepting comments, not really having
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll
like
be
a
reviewed
discussion.
at the
That'll be at the next meeting
Yeah.
where everybody can hear all the same information at the same time.
Yeah, and if my memory serves me correctly, I thought there was some discussion about getting the engineer involved in some issues. Wasn't there speed bumps was one of them? Putting possibly no trucks on
Well, I
that
mean,
road.
you're not gonna have any enforceable traffic things, right? You're gonna make people in the neighborhood angry because they're gonna put speed bumps in there, and these are the people that are here telling you that they don't want the traffic anyway. But if you eliminate the ability for McDonald's to dump traffic onto Countrywood, that's probably gonna be your safest bet as far as keeping traffic out of Countrywood Estates.
I don't know if they're, I can't answer that, I don't know.
All right, cool. No,
It'll be
it's
at
just-
That would be,
yeah.
probably a question to bring up at the next meeting, because then there'll be, I'm assuming, representatives from McDonald's there that could probably answer that better than we can here at this
Okay.
point in time.
no, that's cool. I get it.
And I encourage you to come to the meeting next Tuesday.
I would just like to add that if the concern is their trucks coming in and out, Dollar General functions just fine coming in and out on McHenry. That's the only one they use. My house sits right behind it. I hear their trucks every night. So there really is no purpose for a drive-through or an entrance-exit on Countrywood. Every other business around here functions perfectly with just one driveway going in and out of McHenry.
Okay, thank you. Now, can I close that?
Leave it
No, you
open
leave it open.
for the next meeting.
For the,
Okay, oh,
March
so
21st,
it
it has to remain
stays
open.
open for a whole week? Okay.
yeah, it'll stay open.
Okay. Item number 4. We are there now, right?
Yes.
Is the ordinance amendment?
Yes.
Do I have a staff report?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Before us tonight is a proposed ordinance amendment. So we would conduct a public hearing and consider recommendations to the Escalon City Council regarding amendments to Escalon Municipal Code, Chapter 17.41.140, relating to accessory dwelling units, which we call it shortened to ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, which we shorten to JADUs, and then recommend that the ordinance be exempt from CEQA. In recent years, California legislature has approved bills that amend government code to impose limits on local authority to regulate ADUs and junior ADUs. Those of you on council on commission who have been here for a while, or if you've watched over the years, we have seen ADU ordinances come before us and pass them and adopt them, and as they get amended, we have to bring them back. Well, the California legislature approved a new bill, SB 987, that amended these sections of the government code again, and updated things related to ADUs, such as their height, setback changes, how we process permits, and removing the automatic repeal in 2025. SB 897 took effect January 1st, 2023. When we hit the new year, the city's ADU ordinance didn't comply with those amendments in SB 897, so our entire ordinance became null and void as the law had changed. And so because the city's ordinance was void, ADUs could be built with no local regulation except for a few state requirements related to ADUs. Because our ordinance was void, the city's jurisdiction or authority was limited to applying a few state default standards provided in the government code. And the city finds that allowing the ADUs without local regulations related to height, setbacks, landscape, architectural view, among other things, threatens the character of existing neighborhoods, negatively impacts property values, personal privacy, and fire safety. Therefore, the Escalon City Council adopted an urgency ordinance, number 590, on February 6, 2023, and that amended our existing ADU code to be in compliance with these new government code changes. And when an urgency ordinance is passed by council, it's best practice to follow up with our regular process. Because it's in Title 17, goes to Planning Commission first for recommendation, and then for City Council for final adoption. So the urgency ordinance has already been adopted. We're starting the regular process, coming to Planning Commission first, and based on your recommendations, it'll go to City Council. This ordinance amendment's exempt from CEQA. The public hearing for this ordinance amendment appeared in the Escalon Times on February 22nd, and we did not get any public comments or inquiries. And our recommendation is that the Planning Commission conduct the public hearing and review and make recommendations to the City Council regarding amendments to Chapter 17.41.140 of the Municipal Code relating to ADUs and junior ADUs, and recommend that the ordinance be exempt from CEQA. So the procedure would be to open the public hearing and take any testimony on the project, close the public hearing, review and make recommendations. And attached as Exhibit 1 is the draft ordinance, and Exhibit A in the draft ordinance is the changes to the municipal code. And it is the same form, it is the same regulations that council adopted in their urgency ordinance. So if you have any questions, staff is available.
Is there a deadline that we have to?
There's no deadline that you have to adopt it by. The city attorney's recommendation was just to follow up to the urgency ordinance as soon as possible.
It's my, do you have any comments?
I guess my first question was, because of the nature of how quickly these have to process based on the requirements, and I don't know how quickly permits process through our city since we outsource, is there fees associated with that get pushed onto the permit for expediting review? And who does the actual review or the write-up? Because as I understand it, if it's going to be denied, it has to have a list of corrections or what they have to do to bring it to a passable permitted project.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering who is responsible for that write-up? Is it us or is it the outsourced?
Sure. So during the construction of new structures, so this would be ADUs, it could also be new garages, new houses, new commercial. When you have new structures going up, it's kind of a two-part process. The plans first come to the planning department, and we review them for what's under planning purview, setbacks, lot coverage, height, those sorts of things. And so if the ADU and if, the code is very specific about this is the height you have, this is the setback you have. If you're facing a neighbor, this is what kind of windows you have to. It's very prescriptive in the details. So planning staff would compare the plans that have been submitted for an ADU to the ADU code. And if it's violating one of those sections of code, then it would be planning staff who writes the detailed description of why it's not getting approved and what they need to do to remedy it. Once planning approves it, it goes over to the building department, which you're correct. We outsource or we send out, we have a contract plan check company. And so then they would check it for building code violations. And if it's building code violations, then that company would write the list of what they need to do to remedy it.
Okay.
And between planning staff and building department, our review time and turnaround doesn't exceed what the state law.
Okay. Okay.
Good question.
I printed out the old code, thinking I could have one on one side, one on the other, and compare. And there were places where whole sections were pulled out of one and put in another. And I don't know if, I'm afraid I missed something in because I couldn't just compare left to right. So I guess I don't want to be rushed through, making a decision on this, just to make sure we take into account everything.
And we have that meeting coming up next Tuesday. So if you don't feel like there was enough time to review it, especially if you're comparing to the old code, you could always continue it until the next meeting.
And we can handle it there as well. Typically, when we provide code updates that have significant amount of changes, it's recommended that we just propose a new code. And so it's probably not matching exactly because there were so many changes to be made that it was easier to have it drafted as new as opposed to going in and trying to edit what was already approved. And so that might be where that issue lies.
Yeah, yeah, like when you do the old in red or something and the new in black,
Yeah.
it's easy, it stands out, but this was a little bit different.
This might have been more confusing than necessary.
So on the rental term section, I know that it says that they can't be rented for a term shorter than 30 days. Is there language that would remove its ability to be like a month-long rental on like a VRBO website or something like that? I know that it was similar things have been adopted in like Lodi, where you can't have it in certain of those rental units in certain parts of town, only because there's other stipulations further down, I believe, that talk about those that have been built prior to a certain date don't require owner occupancy of the main residence. So basically, it kind of opens the possibility for a short-term rent.
Yeah, and the code doesn't allow for less than 30 days. Typically Airbnb, VRBO, it's a week long, maybe 2 weeks long. This is set for 30 days.
Okay.
That's coming out of state code. It wasn't a time that the city picked.
Okay.
That's coming out of what the state says.
Okay.
And so if somebody wanted to Airbnb for more than 30 days,
Yeah. Can't really stop
technically
them.
they could.
Okay.
But I think those would be few and far between with the 30 days set.
Who gets to regulate that? Making sure that somebody's not in there less than 30 days?
There's stipulations further down that
Well-
speak to rent.
I know, but who's going to regulate this? The
Well, that
city?
would be the planning department.
No, so, I mean, for complaints, somebody's come, there's a different car,
Code enforcement would probably be, code enforcement meaning planning department, would probably be the department who hears it. If, like you said, if the neighbor, is the city going to follow up with them what's going on? No, but if the neighbor complains that, this is what's going on, it's not a stable tenant, they're coming in every 3 days, then our department would step in and handle that.
complaint driven like all the other.
Correct. Complaint driven. There is another section of the code where it deals with income reporting, and this is new. This wasn't in our previous code. And this also has to do, the city has to fill out what report do we fill out?
Annual housing element report.
And so we have to report numbers of how many units are compliant with, like our RENA numbers, very low income, moderate. And so in order to accurately do the report, we need to know how much these people are charging for their ADU to know what category that unit fits into. So the owner will have to submit information about their income on the unit. And I think that's where it might, if they're reporting income based on 3-day stays, 10-day stays, then we know that they're not following that 30-day rule.
Want to do this page by page, or what did you
I
think?
have just a general question. The city council has already adopted this document that we're looking at.
Right?
So they have gone through, you guys have gone through, here's all the stuff that the state is requiring, and you input this in this new document. So our purpose here really is just to say, send it off? I mean,
Essentially.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was.
It's
that's my
added
sense.
protection for the city. When you pass an urgency ordinance and don't go through the regular process afterwards, it opens the door for more challenges to your ordinance. But if you've adopted it as an urgency, but then you go through the full process with public hearings, it really solidifies the city's ability to enforce it.
And in our practice, when it's comes specific to accessory dwelling units and ordinance amendments, is is in efforts to try to maintain as much control as we can, and at least be given that opportunity to make that determination, either at planning commission level, recommended to council, or at council level, whether that's still control that we would want to maintain. And so in this instance, the items that were updated that are in there, most of them are state regulated. We don't really have a say. And the items that are pointed out to you in the staff report are the ones that we have some control.
Yeah, a lot of the ordinance isn't so much, this is the state telling you what you have to do. It is, and our city attorneys drafted the template for this. There were some sections in there that staff could fill in with what the city wanted. But most of the ordinances, these are the areas where you're allowed to have local control. And so in the areas that we were able to have a say with like landscaping, the income reporting, having a deed restriction, we as a local agency are allowed to ask for these things that give us more control. And so the ordinance was written to give us that control. If we don't put an ordinance in place stating these are the things that we require, then we default back to the state standard, which is very minimum. It really gives developers of ADUs a lot of leeway and a lot of free run as far as what they can do. So where the city could retain local authority, we tried to retain the local authority.
For the benefit of the planning commission, I had 2 questions for staff that were answered, and one of them was on page 26. It's 3A that talks about fire extinguishers that are required for in primary residence if at the time the home was built, the primary home was built, and there was no requirements for sprinklers in it, the ADU didn't require that, and I was concerned about fire issues, and she said we got to do it that way. The second concern I had was on page 30. The numbers changed from what you gave me to this one, so I got to make sure.
Because we added some pages in.
It was 30B1. Okay, still that. This one was talking about if the ADU was within a half-a-mile walking distance to public transit, you didn't have to provide parking. So my question to staff is that in Escalon, we have E-Trans, which is door-to-door. Does that mean the whole city is open? And what staff said that the state's definition of public, transit is a fixed spot where the transit bus goes and not the door-to-door. So we're not subject to that. So those were my 2 concerns that I had with staff.
On the parking, it talks about if a garage is converted to ADU, it says something about the off-street parking spaces are not required to be replaced, so they can get rid of the parking and not have to have it replaced, so those cars would park on the street.
Right, if a single-family house has a garage attached or detached, and they wanted to convert the entire space to an ADU, they would be able to do that and not replace the parking spaces. So now you would have 2 families living in one property with no off-street parking required.
Okay. Is that a state thing?
It is.
It is.
Okay.
And that was a big thing for us. That's probably one of our largest concerns, is everybody having the opportunity to convert the garages, because we have enough parking issues, enough cars on the street. But it's state regulated.
Yeah, we specifically pushed back with the attorney. Are you sure that's right? Is there any way to get off-street parking? And the state law is very cut and dry on that one, that no off-street parking is required in that case.
You been to Windsor? Not Windsor, Hillsburg.
No.
Go to Hillsburg on a weekend. You know, all these little homes have these second units behind it, and you're thinking you're in San Francisco, you can't find parking anywhere. It's horrible. You know, and that's a concern.
And that's what we imagine when we visualize it, is, you know, taking up the garage that's supposed to be where you park your car and turning it into living space, you know, that opens it up to additional vehicles or drivers. I mean, it's changed a lot over the years, where the typical household, you know, you usually had 1 or 2 cars before, now everybody owns a car. And so per household, you're looking at 4 or 5 cars. And then you're adding additional people into the house with the ADU, doubling the amount of cars. Yeah.
And boats
And boats and, yeah.
RVs, yeah.
RVs, yeah.
any other comments?
I have a couple of questions. As far as the state code, it's .2 or .22, is the one the ADU and the one the JADU?
What page are you on?
Well, the 65852.2, it's on a couple of different pages.
Give us one reference of that page.
Well, like on page 22, the very first paragraph, purpose, the California Government Code, .2 and then .22. Are they both? Well, then I'll take you to page 24, under A4, JADU complies with the requirements of government code, and then it's .22. So that's what made me think the .2 was the ADU and .22 was a JADU.
Probably.
Okay, well, and then I just want to point out in A, with the proposed, okay, where the ADU and then colon, and then that, I don't know, just the structure of the sentence, instead of just starting out with the verb.
24?
Yeah.
It's allow regulated accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwellings in compliance with California.
And again, maybe that's okay. Under owner occupancy, is that ours or is that state code? As far as, what if I own something and I rent it to Offspring, and then that person has Offspring, and then they have an ADU in the back, and I don't have, I'm not an owner occupant.
So currently, and they kind of talk about, like, once this date happens, then it changes, but currently, you can have the main house and an ADU, and there's no owner occupancy requirement. So in that case, both could be rented out to 2 separate individuals, and you as the owner live somewhere else. You can have an ADU, well, you can have the main house and an ADU and a junior ADU all on the same property. Anytime you have a junior ADU, there's an owner occupancy requirement.
And that's because junior ADUs are attached to the main dwelling. Typically, you're taking a portion of your main house and dividing it off for somebody, but it's still a part of the main house, and so the.
But is that us or is that the state code?
The state code allows us to have that owner occupancy requirement. But only with the junior ADU. If it's just an ADU and a main house, then we're not allowed to require an owner occupancy.
Okay. And the setbacks, I know when we put in our shed, it was 5 feet, and now is the 4 feet something that we changed here, or is that something the state is saying?
State is saying 4 feet. Both side and rear.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
Any other discussion with staff?
I think that's addressed by code. Oh, the last thing I had was, if it's on, page 32, the non-conforming section, because it says that you basically have to or you can't deny an application because of non-conforming zoning conditions, building code violations, or unpermitted structures on the lot. Is there language in here? I didn't see it, but is there something in here that says that the permit won't final without corrections to like building code violations or? Because it says you have to accept it, but do you have to go through the process and approve the permit at the end of the project without them coming to terms with
Right, so
code violation?
this section 2A, permit to legalize, so we can't deny their permit, but they are applying to legalize it, and so they would, turn in plans or whatever the building permit requires to permit an as-built
Okay.
a building, and so they would have to comply with any building code regulations that the
Or
building,
corrections?
that the
Okay.
building
Before
department
occupancy.
gives them the permit to legalize.
Okay. That was all I had.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
We'll open the public hearing.
Open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up and discuss the amendments to our ordinance? Okay, thank you. Oh, is there anybody online that would like to address?
Yeah.
Are you talking? I can't hear you.
Muted.
You hear us?
He's muted.
Not if you can hear us.
You can hear us
You
fine, he
Good.
says.
We can't hear
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, it says, he
I
might
hear
be
you.
double muted on his headset.
Are you muted? Your headset?
Can you hear me now?
There we
Yes.
go.
There
Now we
you go.
hear you.
Yes.
I, I think the microphone's not working. I have one concern, speaking as a member of the public and not in my official capacity as a commissioner. I'm a little concerned about the income verification requirements. They seem a little burdensome to any property owner who might offer these for rent, and they also seem a bit intrusive on the part of the state. And if we have leeway here, I know some communities have stricken those requirements, and I'm wondering if we might want to consider the same thing as a member of the public.
That's something we can look into. We can
Yeah,
inquire.
we had discussions with our city attorney on this. Initially, we had taken that out of the template because it seemed burdensome to staff.
Yeah,
And
and to the landlord and to property owners.
yeah, and the city attorney really encouraged that it stay in because of its beneficial nature when filling out that housing element report and being able to count those low income, moderate income, very low income properties towards our RENA numbers in our housing element report. So that was the main reason they encouraged the city to leave it in, was so that we could get credit for those units.
And the push there with the state is obviously, we have regional housing needs, and so each city is essentially given a certain amount of housing units that they have to provide for each area: moderate, above moderate, low income, very low income. And when you're filling out annual reports, and the state is getting, it's more and more difficult to meet their needs. They're becoming more and more stricter on wanting cities and wanting counties and wanting the state to develop more housing, expedite housing, make housing more efficient. And so this section is specifically, I mean, in a way, it's giving the cities the information they need to tell and prove to the state, this counts as low income. Take that number off my list. I had 300 houses now. This one meets low income. Now I only owe you $299 instead. And so that's what it's serving for, that purpose, is so that cities have solid evidence to show in their reports. Like in past years in reports, they've tried to, COGS in the area have tried to create ADU calculators, and we were trying to create all these things, methods, formulas to where if everybody in the county does it that way, maybe it's acceptable to the state. I think this is where they've come in and said, if you do it this way, we'll believe you, and then we'll let it count towards your regional housing needs. And so cities are really struggling to show anything that comes in, including ADUs, we want it to count. And so if this is what they were doing to make it count, we're taking that and we're knowing that number and we're applying it towards that need.
But
But isn't that, wouldn't that be handled just by the rent? I mean, if we can say the place rents for a price that qualifies as low-cost housing, what difference does it make if the person has a high income, a low income, or no income? The housing still qualifies as low-income housing, correct?
well, that's what that report the property owner submits to us, is that's their proof. This is the monthly rent we're collecting on the unit.
So what, yeah, okay, but but you don't have to verify any kind of income of the individuals involved, correct?
No, we're not looking at the renter's tax returns or paychecks. We're not verifying any of that information. The report would be something from the property owner saying, you know, this is the annual income I made off the property. I collected $19,000 a year, something like that. But we're not getting into verifying anybody's income. No.
But doesn't that then have the same effect of verifying, or at least attributing a certain amount of income to the property owner?
Yeah, it would be verifying the income that the property owner made on the rental unit, which would be, you know, if they said, you know, we charge $1,700 a month, whether they tell us that or they tell us we made $19,000 a year, it would be the same information.
It's not, excuse me, it's not diving into whatever their fees or whatever they put into the property. You know, they're not deducting all of that. It's just purely what the rent rate is per month, not how much they necessarily make off the property, because it could be, you know, less, considerably less if they owe money or other things like that. It's just stating what they charge for rent every month, not diving in too deep.
Right.
What sort of verification is the state requiring the city to collect?
Do they ask on the housing element report?
Housing element report, I haven't looked at it in a year, but it's pretty detailed. They ask for address, parcel numbers.
Well, I'm more interested in the income, the dollar amount, of what
Currently, they don't ask they ask for sales price. I think on most of the units that we've had that have been reported, if I recall correctly, I'm going off of how much they sold for that year.
Well, I thought it was.
But but for ADUs,
Yeah,
I'm thinking of
that's what I'm asking.
regular dwellings.
Yeah, I'm interested, I'm asking
For ADU, I think we try to like guesstimate, calculate how much we think it would go by looking like on Zillow and trying to,
You're not getting any official documentation from the owner?
no, not at this time, no, because it hasn't been required in the past. So this will be new.
And it's just,
Does any other landlord have to report this kind of income?
Can you repeat the question? We didn't hear it clearly.
Is any other landlord of any other type of property other than ADUs and JADUs, are they required to report these costs or incomes?
Multifamily landlords have business licenses through the city, and so their gross receipts factor into how much they pay for a business license. So multifamily, the apartments, landlords that have like fourplexes, they do report it. But just a property owner who owns a single-family house, they do not report. They don't have business licenses.
So we wouldn't be getting the information from them even if they were providing low-cost housing or low-income housing.
Correct.
So our information would be incomplete if we relied on this, just this information to satisfy the state's requirements.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a one-time submission at permit application for the projected annualized rent.
Well, it also has them within 90 days after January of each year.
Oh,
following
okay, I see that
issuance.
now.
So yeah, once it's permitted.
Yeah, so yearly.
So basically what will happen is we'll have to create some type of database where we're tracking new ADUs or ADUs created under this ordinance, and then send them out notification that they need to submit that.
Yeah, because they won't have a business license or like you were saying, so there's no way to track it otherwise without that element.
Just Mike, if that was.
You have any other questions? Mike, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, Mike?
No, that was my biggest question and my biggest concern as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of concerns about the mandates that the state's putting on us. So, it's, yeah,
Absolutely.
I know. Well, thank you for your input. Any other comments?
There's two other people on the go-to, maybe if you want to check again with them.
Okay, is there anybody else online or on the phone that would like to make a comment? Is that what the JJ and the JTs are? Okay. Anybody else would like to comment?
Thank you.
Jim or Joe?
I think he said no, thank
No,
you.
I said no, thank you. Not
Okay.
on that one.
Thank you.
John? No? Okay.
John's just checking on.
Is this your husband?
A spy.
Okay. Can I close this portion of the?
You can
I'm
close the
going to
public.
close this portion of the public hearing, bring it back to the council, commission for discussion.
No, we didn't make any changes, did we?
I mean, how can you? I mean, that's my feeling.
Yeah.
The city put this together, the council.
I think building code solves a lot of the things that, as long as we're running it through that, it solves all of the questions that I had.
So do I hear a motion to, let's see, where I know it's in here somewhere. What page is that on? Is there a motion to,
Not too far. There you go.
do I hear a motion to make recommendations to the city council regarding the amendments to the City of Escalon Municipal Code, Chapter 17.41.140, relating to accessory buildings and junior accessory dwelling units. And the recommendations, the ordinance be exempt from SEQA.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Okay. Next thing on the agenda, administrative matters.
I have none.
I'm trying to think of anything we have. As you're aware, we have 2 new commissioners that were appointed by the city council at their last meeting. Next meeting, or our next meeting is scheduled for special meeting, and those are for the items that were continued on tonight's meeting, and those will be at 6:30 PM on Tuesday, March 21st. And then do we know for sure whether we're having our April meeting at this point in time?
I don't have anything on the agenda for the April meeting.
Okay, so we'll keep you on the loop on that meeting. Form 700s are gonna be due April 3rd. And so I've received yours and yours. And I know you have yours. So, yeah, as long as it's April 3rd, you're fine. And so I'll be reaching out to you via email if it hasn't been submitted, just to make sure it gets in by that deadline. Trying to think of anything else we have going on. A lot of stuff going on. The thing I can pinpoint now for future. We're trying to apply for some grant funding currently for a few projects. And so we're working on that both in the police department and here at City Hall for the SSJID surface water project. There's some radio needs that the police department has, and so we've been working on those the last few weeks, trying to get those in. And those have been prioritized because there's money related to them, and so we're really trying to move those through and meet those deadlines on those. And we can report that back. And that's all at this time.
Okay, matters presented from the audience. If anybody in the audience would like to get up and address the planning commission on any non-agenda items, please do so. Come on up, speak. Since there's not very many people, I'm not going to say it's limited to 5 minutes. We can't make a vote on anything, but if you want to express anything, please state your name to the podium, and we're just here to listen. Okay.
We have the people online as well.
Anybody online? Jim? I mean, Joe? Okay, John?
No, I'm okay. I think I missed the first item, which is the reason I was hopping on. I just looked at the agenda.
Well, yeah, that's been,
Continued to the March 21st meeting, so
Yeah.
those items will be continued to next Tuesday at
Next Tuesday.
6:30.
Okay, thank you.
No
okay.
problem.
Staff communications?
I just realized I gave staff communications under administrative matters, so nothing new to report.
Okay. Commission communication, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Barb?
Nothing. Welcome.
Status of Orlando's? Where are we on that?
Getting close.
Waiting for the rain to quit?
Getting close, I hear. Yeah, the building, they have several kind of phases to the project, parts of the project. They have the interior of the building, they have the parking lot, and they have the fuel station, and those are kind of moving at different paces. And so the interior remodel is very close, I hear. Environmental Health Department and the fuel station has been held up through that agency a bit. They're not quite as quick with permit processing as the local agency, so, but I hear it's moving and should be soon.
I have no communications. Other than thank you for your job and welcome aboard. Glad you're here. I will adjourn the meeting.
Since 7:25.
I want to ask you a question. Do you feel comfortable switching phone numbers? I'll give you my contact